Father is not just the man who made you. Father is the man who stays, covers, loves, sacrifices, and helps raise you into who you're supposed to be. Biology matters. I'm not pretending it doesn't. But biology alone is not fatherhood. And if we don't tell the truth about that, we leave children confused, men passive, and families broken. So today, I want to talk about what actually makes a man a father. Not just genetically, functionally, relationally, spiritually, practically. And I want to do it through truth, through family systems, through psychology, and through one of the most personal parts of my own story. Hey guys, my name is Thomas Emmanuel Orms-O'Brien. I am the president and co-founder of Building a Home Inc. along with my wife Vanessa. And normally we introduce ourselves at the beginning of every video because we understand that our verbiage is very unique to us, and we have developed frameworks and ideologies that we utilize on a daily basis to tackle the various topics. But today, I'm going to do something a little different. If you want a deep dive on who we are, why we're here, who our audience is, what we're trying to accomplish, and how we're doing it, I would invite you to go to our school community. You can join for free, and the first classroom lesson, full breakdown of video curriculum on our BHI framework. It explains why we believe every human being on earth is desiring wholeness and for a life that has nothing missing and nothing broken. If you want to know more on who we are, why we're here, like I said, please, the link is in the description. It's in the bio. Get on over there. We would love to see you. It'll be a great, great time. Until then, let's get back into the video. So why understanding fatherhood matters, aside from the biological evolutionary advantages that are available there, the genealogy that is passed down from father to son, father to daughter, obviously a mother being involved there, the metaphysical requirements and the moral claims that society has placed on what a healthy nucleus and family looks like. We want to deep dive into this because there are a lot of people alive today who are deeply confused about fatherhood. I myself, for a very long time, was in that category. I had a very abusive biological father, and later on, my mother ended up remarrying, and I have technically a stepfather. But that man went from Richard to dad because it is through his love, through his presence, through his safety, through his predictability, through his correction, that I understood what being a father was really about, because I was on the receiving end of it. And this was from a man who had no evolutionary biologic investment in my livelihood. He did things over and above being my mom's husband. He showed genuine care, and he did his utmost to try to teach me as much as I could. Now, at the time, when I was young, he came into our lives when I was 11. He was the father I needed, but not the one I wanted. In fact, he was so good that I was resentful towards him because he was everything I wished my biological father was at the time, but I couldn't have. And it took me over 15 years to get to the place where I finally understood this is my dad. Not because He inseminated my mother, and through that insemination, she gave birth to me. But because of how he defined fatherhood in my life. And some of you may resonate with this because some people, like myself, were abandoned. Some were provided for but never known. Some had a biological father but not a dad. Some had a stepdad or another man become more of a father than the biological one ever was. And there's a big stigma on stepdads and step parenting still, even to this day. Obviously, divorce is suboptimal, and we don't want anyone to have to go through that. But Richard, my father, my dad, he has definitely broken the mold, and I'm so very proud of who he is as a person. I'm proud that when we walk into a room, he introduces me as his son, and I introduce him as my dad because of who he is and what he has done in my life. And the thing is, if we flatten fatherhood to genetics alone, we lie to people. It is intellectually dishonest. And if we flatten it into feelings alone, then we also lie to people. And so we need something more honest, a definition of fatherhood built on reality. So, biology versus fatherhood. Let's make the distinction clearly. Biology answers one question: who made the child? Fatherhood answers another: who stayed, covered, loved, protected, formed, and helped raise the child. Now, there are a lot of great biological fathers who also embrace fatherhood. But in my case and millions of others around the world, there are biological fathers who did not embrace fatherhood. And so, those are not always the same man. Sometimes they are. Sometimes they are not. This is painful, but it is real. And the problem with refusing to tell the truth is that it keeps people trapped in false loyalty, confusion, resentment, and worst of all, unprocessed grief. So here's the clean line: a father is more than a biological event. A father is a long obedience in love, sacrifice, presence, and responsibility. So, what children actually need from a father? Based on widely accepted developmental psychology, this isn't new. This is something with nearly a century's worth of data. And of course, outside of modern psychoneurological practice, we have human history. Potentially hundreds of thousands of years worth of inference that informs our capacity to use clinical terminology in psychology and neuroscience. So I hate that people want to solely stick to empirical data. We have hundreds of thousands of years of evidence before a laboratory, before modern experimental processes were able to be put in place. We have history, we have philosophy, we have society, we have culture. And so, regardless, though, this is based on widely accepted developmental psychology. Children, no matter who they are, no matter their race, no matter their economic standing, require certain things, not optional, require certain things for healthy brain development. And that's safety, attunement, consistency, protection, and guidance. If one of those 5 things are missing, right? Love, safety, predictability are the large meta categories, and these 5 fit into those 3. But if they're missing any one of those things, they will end up developing a maladaptive coping mechanism as an intelligent survival response to replace one of those things. And so, also understanding that love is necessary and is stable enough to shape identity. So, let me put that in plain English. A child needs a father figure who helps teach several things. Number 1, I am safe. When I am in danger, I have dad. Right? Mom is important too, but the biological proclivity of a male is to be the protector and provider of the family. That's the science. So a child needs a father figure who helps teach that first. I am safe. Secondly, I matter. I have intrinsic value. It would be tragic for my life to end. If a child doesn't understand that and they don't feel as though they are intrinsically valuable, that is the beginning of a road leading to suicidal ideation. Period. End of story. Number 3, I can trust. I have people around me to where if I am in a compromised state or in a compromised position, whether that be physically, mentally, emotionally, or spiritually, he's there, right? Number 5, I can grow. The mother nurtures the child. The father is responsible for worldly preparation. It's dad's job to be like, hey, these are the rules. This is what you do to be successful, to thrive. This is what you do to vanquish your enemies. This is what you do to love your neighbor. All of the things that a person needs to not just survive, but thrive in the global environment and to become what they would call a productive member of society. It's really cheesy. I don't necessarily believe in that claim per se. I do believe in maximal human optimization in terms of upper aimed living and global impact. I think that goes over and beyond a productive member of society. But the father is responsible for relaying that message. You can grow. And growth is ugly. There's going to be mistakes, which brings us to the next one, which is I can fail and still be loved. Father's job is to be the one who, before they die, you're supposed to know they want you to be better than when they started, than when they progressed, than when they succeeded, when they finalized their last breaths. Right? And then number 6, I am being guided, not abandoned. Right? And guidance doesn't have to be overbearing, protective, absolute law and tyranny. But guidance is like hey, the bowling ball gets thrown down the lane towards the pins and there's guardrails on either side so it doesn't gutter and produce nothing. Right? That guidance is like, yeah, no, don't go too far on this side, son, daughter. Don't go too far on this side. Just get on the path, go. And however many pins you knock down, great job. And so what does that mean, though? Is a father doesn't require perfection, nor does he need to be perfect. But he does need to be present, truthful, and sacrificial. So children, they do not need a brand. They do not need macho slogans. They do not need money without relationship. They need a man whose love has weight. Trauma affects parents too. And so this is also where I want to bring in something important. Trauma affects parents too, not just children. A lot of broken homes are built by wounded adults who were never made whole themselves. And this is really hard to articulate because then I have to look at my biological father and understand that he was a broken man. And there's a difference between evil and broken. Now, did I believe him to be evil for the majority of my life? Yes, 100%. But his decisions and his response to stimulus in life was also based off how he was raised. And until I started to speak with family members, one of the things that unfortunately he did was keep me isolated from my family, from his side of the family. And I didn't have access to his side of the family until after he died. That was part of his manipulative structure because they would be able to explain the truth about him and what made him human. But in my eyes, he wanted me to see him as absolute and believe only what he had to say, which is part of, a narcissistic sociopathic profile, but that's neither here nor there. Regardless, coming to the understanding that he was crazily abused as a child, like insane. So, did he do better than my grandfather, his father? Yes. But the bar was only a few inches off of the ground. And so that still left me abandoned, mentally abused, emotionally abused, and, psychologically and neurologically manipulated by his schemes, his decisions, his lies. And it's hard to hold the weight of both of those things in the balance. The truth about him, but also the truth about him, right? And so what happens though is that doesn't excuse destruction, but it does explain patterns. Tony Robbins, he says that pattern recognition is the single most greatest skill on the planet. When you can notice a pattern, then it allows you to pivot into the highest form of that, which is pattern creation. You can stop the pattern of abuse, which is generational trauma, right? And you can pivot into something greater, which is pattern creation, right? My kids with my wife will never know the pain that I have been through. Now, once they're out of the nest, and that's not to say that life doesn't strike, right? Because the universal experience of every human being is pain and suffering, but at least they won't get it from me. And if they have to endure that, which they will one day, they will know, hey, I have dad, right? And so already that breaks generations and generations of trauma because I was able to recognize the pattern, thank God. And now I am in pattern creation, which is addressing my own trauma, right? Through counseling, through personal development, through value creation, investing in myself, investing in my wife. And so that already, whatever happens, puts my family in another echelon of societal category than they've ever been in before, regardless of if they are as financially successful I am, which the way that my wife and I are setting things up, we will be able to pass down not only just monetary value, but capacity for success in our future generations. So hopefully, and most likely the case will be that they're even more successful than we are. Regardless though, some fathers, they withdraw because they were never taught presence. Some rage because they were never taught regulation. Some abandon because intimacy feels dangerous. Some provide materially, right? But are absent emotionally because they think provision is enough. And so, BHI, our responsibility is to tell the truth about both the child's pain and the parent's pain. Because if you only look at one side or the other, which humanity tends to be on the pendulum of extremes, because extreme is comfortable, right? Because if it's, I only look at the child's pain, the parent is forever evil, and the child gets to continuously stay in a state of victimhood and never get their power back and never, you know, become the highest form that they possibly could be. Versus if I only look at the parent's pain, then we have a lot of older people in our generation now where they say, oh, yeah, it's just a troubled kid. He was the rebel. He's the black sheep. It's the child. There's bad children, not bad teachers, which is like absolutely innately stupid and insane, right? It goes completely against the science. But regardless, I have to split the truth down the middle and walk through that door. Whether I'm hated for it or not, it doesn't matter, because the truth is the truth. If I'm doing anything but the truth, then I'm a slave. And I want to be free. And so, like I said, if you look only at one side, your view of family stays shallow. And that helps no one. So this is where my own story matters. Richard became my dad through the unconditional love he showed my mother and me. Absolutely unconditional. That love was not theoretical. It was lived. It was embodied. It was proven in presence, in care, in covering, in relationship. And that is why the name matters. Going from Thomas Emmanuel Orms to Thomas Emmanuel Orms-O'Brien is not cosmetic. It's not random. It's truth. It's me saying, this man's love shaped me. This man became dad through covenant, not just biology. Now, that doesn't erase biology, but it does tell the truth about fatherhood. And sometimes truth is exactly what heals identity. Now, I want to bring Jesus into this carefully and accurately. Jesus does not teach fatherhood as branding. He teaches it through love, sacrifice, presence, truth, protection, and formation. And if we read scripture through relationship, not performance religion will destroy you, and it is destroying the planet right now as we speak. Religion must die so that relationship can live. So if we read scripture and all ancient Semitic and Near Eastern philosophical manuscripts through the lens of relationship, we see a pattern. That real fatherhood is covenantal. This means it is faithful, it is responsible, it stays, it carries weight, and it forms identity. So this is not about becoming religious. This is about seeing that the deepest truths about family are relational, not merely institutional. And that is why blood can begin a story, but love, sacrifice, and presence can complete it. So here's your practical next step. I think journaling is probably the biggest unlock to creative intelligence in my life to date. I don't stop journaling. I watched a personal development video on Jim Rohn, and he said, don't trust your memory. Write it down so that later on it can extract value. I mean, I'm constantly journaling. I've never journaled this much in my life. This is probably the second book that I've gone through since, I don't know, June of 2025 is when I started journaling. We're talking like 200-page journals there. But what happens is, and there's a science to phonetics, a science to writing. Um, there's a really great content creator on YouTube. He brings us back to the grassroots of um, reading and writing, which is so important, and the psychology and neurology behind why it's so paramount. And because what happens is your thoughts, ideas, imaginations, impressions, they're all ethereal. They're not physical. You can't touch it. But when you take the action of writing, you're bringing it down from the spiritual realm, from the divine, right? From the ethereal, and you're placing it into a form of reality by inscribing it on a piece of paper. So there are statistical analyses on people who journal and people who write down their goals. A person who writes down their goals is 68% more likely to complete it than someone who doesn't. Because again, if it's written down, it became real. It's confrontational. It's accountable. It's right in your face. It's saying, "Hey man, what's going on with this thing?" So every week, part of our CTAs is we try to give people practical next steps, and a lot of it is through journaling to kind of get you in that mindset shift so that you can take what's ethereal and bring it into reality. And so, step one, we call it the fatherhood rebuild tool. And it's to write one sentence. And it's a father should blank, right? But here's the caveat: if you're not being honest, it doesn't work, right? Honesty and truth telling is the only thing that not only aligns you with reality, but places you on the great adventure of human optimization, the highest form of living, and becoming an upward aiming individual that transforms themselves, their family, the community, and then as an automatic byproduct, that community can change the world. Right? That is the progression of evolution of personal development. Me, my family, my community, the world. It's the 4 stages, and anyone can do it. But you have to tell the truth, not the church answer, not the fake answer, the real answer. Exactly what you believe, right, is the truth. Now, what you believe may be a falsehood, but at least write down the truth of what you believe immediately. And step 2, write in one sentence, what I needed most was blank. Maybe it was presence, maybe protection, maybe guidance, maybe gentleness, maybe consistency. And I was in lack of all of those things with my biological father, which I had then gained my stepfather through dad, who now is my father, the only one I have, well, aside from the heavenly one. Have all of those things, and he has consistently provided me with those things. But step 3, choose one action. So honor your father, not just the man who biologically is. And if your biological father is also the man who embraced fatherhood, you are blessed beyond your wildest dreams. You are so blessed to have had a biological father that embraced fatherhood. But if you're like myself, you have a stepdad, a good one. Honor the man who became dad, or grieve what was missing. Forgive without lying. Tell the truth to yourself, and become the kind of man or woman who gives what you did not get. That is how healing moves. It's truth, grief, honor, and action. If you don't take action after reflection, nothing changes if nothing changes, right? And so if you grew up in divorce, trauma, chaos, hear me clearly. I want you to know this is one of the biggest goals of this channel. You are not disqualified. Healing is possible. Wholeness is possible. And your life can still change the world. So here's my question. What's your next step? Drop it in the comments. And if you want structure, accountability, and a community around you rebuilding brick by brick, join us in school. The link is in the description, in our About page, on all of our socials. It's in every bio. But also, resources are in the description if you're in a dark place. You're not alone. This is Thomas Emmanuel Orms-O'Brien, proudly. I love you guys. See you on the next one.